So in general, men are going to want to conquer, and that is reflected in the copy a lot of times. Like you see, crush your competition. Women don't want to crush our competition. We want everybody to get along and we want to be ahead. It doesn't mean that we don't want to win, we don't want to succeed, but it doesn't mean that everybody else has to suffer as a result. So when I started having live events of my own, some of the attendees who were mostly women would come up to me privately and say, I love you, you're great, la la la, but I hate that, war language and that kind of in your face writing and the long sales letters. That I was like flummoxed because that's what works. That's what's been working for so long. I was like, I don't know what to say to you.
Hey, hey, hey. Welcome to another episode of Scroll Halters with your host, Mitt, a show where entrepreneurs, creators, and marketers share their best stories and insights. This show is brought to you by Social Marketing Writing. Today I'm joined by Laurie Morgan. She's a pioneer of emotional response copywriting and the queen bee of selling to women without the broy BS. She founded Red Hot Copy in 1999, built a thriving business from her laptop while raising her kids, and made a name by adding feminine fire to old school persuasion tactics. Mentored by legends like Dan Kennedy, John Carlton, and Gary Halbert, Laurie mixes sharp strategy with real life storytelling that makes buyers feel seen, heard, and ready to say yes. Hi, Laurie. Welcome to the show.
Hey, hey, thanks. It's so good to be here, Mitt.
Yeah, could you please tell my listeners more about what you do and about yourself?
Well, yeah, for sure. So, I run a company called Red Hot Copy that I started in 1999, and it's kind of evolved into copywriting in the early aughts. And I've found, as you mentioned, my mentors, Gary Halbert, John Carlton, and Dan Kennedy. And I learned how to write. I wouldn't say like them, but I learned the traditional direct response stuff, studied all the greats and all that, and I love it. I love the like in your face and the energy of direct response marketing. So when I started having live events of my own, some of the attendees who were mostly women would come up to me privately and say, I love you, you're great, la la la, but I hate that, war language and that kind of in your face writing and the long sales letters. That I was like flummoxed because that's what works. That's what's been working for so long. I was like, I don't know what to say to you. So I basically kind of holed up for about a year and just studied what's different about writing to women versus writing to men. Why are these women not getting that this is what works? And I found out so much about psychology of women. Just because I'm a woman doesn't mean I automatically knew why we make the decisions that we make. And the stuff that I discovered was a lot about evolutionary psychology and a lot of like software that's running underneath our regular emotions, our regular decision making processes that still impact how we make decisions today, even though we may not necessarily be aware of it. And there's these little subtle nuances in writing that you can tweak and use to make your writing appeal more to a female audience or more to a male audience too. Once you know what the levers are, then you can decide. Or if you have a combo, most of us have a hybrid audience. You can just kind of balance the line, because what works with women also works with men, but what works with men does not necessarily work with women, not with all women.
And how did you figure this out? Did you find someone who taught you how to write for women, or did you go and read books on psychology?
I I found it out on my own. It was all just through all the research that I did. And it makes so much sense the more I started digging into it. It's basically like when you think, and I got this idea from John Carlton. He calls us hairless apes. Like we're just basically running around the world with cell phones, but underneath it all, we're still like cavemen and cave women. And so when I took myself back to that time period, like I guess maybe 100,000 years or whatever, when our instincts were gelling, when we had the hunter-gatherer models and we started actually creating societies, that's when our instincts started to come into play. and they still run in the background today. So if you think about it, you couldn't open your refrigerator and have it get a chicken leg. You didn't know if you were going to eat every day. So there's all these factors that would be a fear factor that would, you want to make sure that you have security. You want to make sure that you're safe from predators, that you have enough food, that you can make your food last through the winter. And as a result, men, because they're typically stronger and larger than women. And these are all generalities. There's definitely, exceptions on both sides. But I know I can't open a jar of pickles, but my husband can, things like that. They're just stronger. And so they tended to be the hunters. They would go out wandering farther away from camp, where women, because we're obviously born, we bear children, we're going to stick closer to camp. It's hard to go on a hunt with a kid. And because you're closer to camp, you're going to forge relationships with the other women who are around the camp. And that made community a very important factor for women, community and getting along. Like, we're very, very good at social skills and social cues because we had to be. And that continues on. Like when social media first started, I don't know if you remember when Facebook first came out and men were like, duh, I don't know what is this. And women are like, da 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 da. They're typing and they're just chatting back and forth. It's like a duck to water to us. We just do it. We're social. And guys are like, what's the point? Where's the end of the hunt? It kind of doesn't make sense. And of course there's, it goes both ways, and guys certainly have warmed up to social media at this point. But it's just interesting how we perceive the world differently. So in general, men are going to want to conquer, and that is reflected in the copy a lot of times. Like you see, crush your competition. Women don't want to crush our competition. We want everybody to get along, and we want to be ahead. It doesn't mean that we don't want to win and we don't want to succeed, but it doesn't mean that everybody else has to suffer as a result. So it's kind of a fine line. So those kind of like killer copy, those kinds of phrases I avoid in my copy. And there's also I try to use a lot of storytelling because that cuts through sales resistance on both sides, male and female. So that when you actually get somebody engaged in a story, they don't feel like they're being sold to, because no one likes to be sold to. We like to buy things, but we like to feel like it's our idea. So storytelling is something else that works really, really well with women. And this, you might find this interesting as sort of a scientific mind. When I started studying more about storytelling too, I found out that it does things to the brain that actually connect you to the reader, to the writer. So if I'm reading a story that you wrote, I have what's called mirror neurons that light up, that actually, it's like I'm reading the story in real time with you. Like I'm experiencing the story in real time. So whatever it is that you're writing, you have a great deal of control over how the person reading it will respond emotionally, whether that's male or female. So storytelling does cross both genders very, very easily. And a lot of the little nuances that you use in writing do that too.
Is anything about uh, having more courage to tell the story, like from the person who's reciting the story? Is there anything about them having more courage to tell the story? Because I know that one of the reasons why a lot of people
Yes.
don't want to speak in public is because in ancient times, if you said something wrong, you got kicked out of the tribe and you probably died because of it because no one did support you.
Right.
And that's why nowadays, I mean, it's not going to happen. Nothing's bad going to happen, but it's instincts. Has that got something to do with that?
Absolutely. That's a great example, because you're right. We're not going to die if we get ostracized in society, but it feels like it. It's because that's in our programming. And so it's at all costs you need to be able to connect with people. And that's why rejection feels so crappy, because you want to make sure that everybody's, that you get to stay in the tribe, or so you don't die. So yeah, that definitely has something to do with it.
Okay. And so when you're writing copy, how does all of this translate? As in, what sort of things are you trying to incorporate in your copy to so that it appeals more to women than to men?
So it all starts in the research phase for whoever you're selling to. Obviously, you have to really do the deep dive about what keeps them up at night. What are the real reasons why they want to buy something or why they want to solve a problem? It's not that they necessarily want to buy something, but they're looking to solve some sort of problem. So you have to do a lot more digging. And nowadays with AI, oh my gosh, you can do it so much faster, but it also puts out a lot of output that it's so massive that sometimes it's hard to actually get in there and um, dissect and then decipher. But nevertheless, you want to start by doing that, doing a really deep dive. And what I do is I create a profile. It's an avatar, basically, same thing, but I take it a little deeper and I actually write a bio of that person. And I make it not, you know how sometimes when you're doing your market research, you'll say, I'm selling to a woman who's 45 to 55. No, you're selling to a 46-year-old, or you're making some decisions, or you're selling to a 49-year-old and her name is, Emma Rock or whatever. I don't know. But you make decisions until you make this person into like a full life human being. And so that you could actually write the copy as if you're talking to that person and you understand what their emotional needs are on a super deep level, on a psychological level. And when you can do that, then it makes the copy really connecting for one thing. And for the other, it starts, you get more clear on who it is that you're writing to. And even if you are selling, maybe a 36-year-old is going to buy, they're still going to resonate with the copy because it's going to be so clear. And so
Okay.
that's one of the things I do. I call it a target. So it's
Okay.
like target market is your whole big market. And then you pull one person out of that, your ideal client, your ideal human, and then you write a bio about it. And I push target market together to make a target because it sounded singular to me. And then this is before I knew it's funny because it was the beginning of my copywriting career that I came up with this process. I had no idea that there was an avatar or a persona. I had no idea. I was just like, oh, you should actually only be writing to one person. And so I came up with this process because I used to be an actress. And
Okay.
so it was like a character study to me, and it was really fun and fascinating. And I literally will find a picture of that person and I will write to that person. Like my target for my newsletter is her name is Nikki Stanton. She's a divorcee from who lives in San Diego with a single child named Madison. She has a home computing business, and um, she likes to jog. She wants to visit Italy. Like, we just get really deep into what makes her tick. And the more you can do that, the more you're going to sound like you're talking to a real human. And when real humans read it, then they actually connect.
Okay. Because one thing someone did tell me was what, especially if you, for example, if you're writing something very biz or
Mm,
is that if you're writing for men, you're going to talk more about how much they're going to make, like m more in terms of
yes.
money. But with women, you have to go with a very different angle that doesn't focus so much on the money. Is that something you do too?
Yes, that is. And that's a good example. So let's look at BizOp. So men are much more moved by figures and numbers, whereas women are looking more at relationships and connections and emotional payoffs. And so for the biz op, you would probably look more at the freedom that she's going to get. So that's the freedom to spend time with her family, to get a mani pedi, or to buy a designer purse that she shouldn't buy because it's too expensive, but she can because she's making this money in the biz op. So you want to dimensionalize it a little bit more with women. And again, that's going to work with men too, because if men have a family, they're going to want more time with their family. That's why I'm saying that it works when you address women, you just pull the guys into the process at the same time.
Okay. And which one would you say is harder to write for? Is it harder to write for women or harder to write for men?
Oh, good question. So I cut my teeth on writing to men. I've sold like erectile dysfunction. Sold vitamins and supplements and home workout stuff. So I wouldn't say that one is easier or harder. I don't think that's the case. It's really just more about getting really in tune with your target market. and and then taking it from there. I could write the same version of a masculine letter and a feminine letter, and they'll be similar, but they'll just, and I've done this too, actually, in my trainings. I do this where like I'm writing for a home gym right now, and everything is all about, building muscle. Well, women don't want to build muscle, but they want to be strong. So you just shift that to tone up, to tone, fit into your little black dress, things like that. So it's just some different language choices that comes from what do they want as the ultimate payoff.
Okay. I mean, what I'm thinking is most of the copy out there is written for men. Like most people don't
Yeah.
think about writing for women, so they just write for men. So if you were to write copy specifically for women, probably you'll enter into a market that's less sophisticated.
I wouldn't say that's true at all, actually. I don't I think that we cover you're going to find women in the industry, really. I mean, copywriting used to be just male oriented, and you made a very good point as far as the the copy is written for men by men, and even if they're by written by men for women, there's so many tells. I see the signs all the time. Like, okay, a dude wrote that, like, and that does not resonate with me. And it's just subtle little tells, like the crush your competition sorts of things. Or actually, Eugene Schwartz, who's amazing, wrote a lot of cosmetic copy, face creams and stuff. And he would write things like, get rid of those ugly wrinkles. It's like, no, that's not how you talk to women. We know we have ugly wrinkles. We are harder on ourselves than you could possibly be. So you want to be a little more gentle, like, and flip it more to the positive, like, regain the radiance you had 10 years ago, something like that. So now I forgot where you were going with your question.
Okay.
I had more to add, and I can't remember what you asked.
I was talking
Sorry.
about market sophistication and how if you wrote for women, market sophistication would be lower probably.
Ah, see, no, no, definitely not the case. But you would want to relate to them more. I mean, it all comes back to relationships and connection. And you mentioned, I think we talked about this on this call or maybe before, but how security is a huge thing for women. If you think back to the caveman days,
Yeah.
they want to feel secure, they want to feel safe, they want to feel like a decision that they make isn't going to mess up their entire lives. Like if they're buying a protein powder, it's not just to get nice abs, it's also like, will I stick with this? Is this a waste of my money? Is it a waste of my resources? Is this the best decision I can make? So there's all these things that are going back in the back of their mind that impact the buying decision. And so you have to address those. You have to bring those out. So if any, I wouldn't, I hate to say, like, is one like a higher or lower, but there are just more levers you have to pull with women to make sure that you hit all their bases. You have to make sure you have a very strong guarantee that she understands she can back out if she needs to. You have to make sure that she feels empathy. And like I mentioned with the wrinkles, and that's not empathetic at all. That's like judgy, and it comes across that way, even if that's not the intention. The intention is to highlight the flaw, the issue, but if you put a spotlight on it in a sort of offensive way, you're going to repel female buyers.
Okay. And yeah, I mean, if someone wanted to learn more about how to write for women, how do they go about it? Because I can't really think of any copywriting books or anything that focus on this topic.
No, right? There's not,
Mm.
because we just recycle the same stuff that has worked for human nature, for hundreds of years. The copy that we've studied and that we emulate is from the masters, Hopkins, Gene Schwartz, and all that. And that's sort of style is outdated, but the principles are not. And so these are all men who wrote, and we just keep recycling that same process. So there's really not a lot of women out there who are seeing the differences and highlighting the differences. So I'm one of the few actually who actually teaches how to write to women. I have courses
Yeah.
a couple times a year just to do that, like live courses. And yeah, as far as books go, Marty Barletta has one. called, oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of it. But she was one of the first people I started studying when I started studying how women buy. And there's a few, it's not necessarily copywriting books, but there are a few just about women's psychology. The Female Brain by, I can't remember who that was wrote that, but that was also very enlightening to me in my research, learning how women's brains are developed differently. We have the same amount of brain cells, but the organization is different and the function is different. How we can multitask better than guys can multitask because we had to. You have a toddler, you have food, you have, um, you have the home fires to keep burning. There's so much to be thinking about. That's all in our instincts underneath.
And you think, okay, so reading a lot of books on a topic like evolutionary biology or psychology might help in getting better
For
at this.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that would be brilliant.
Okay. Okay, that's great. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of this. Can you tell people more about where they can find you and also your courses? Because you also have a free course on how
I
to write for
do.
women, don't you?
I do. It's at my website, redhotcopy.com. And that's where all of the announcements and things are. I would just recommend that people sign up for my newsletter. And I send it, I love writing it. I send it out a few times a week and you can stay up to date. And there's always tips and tactics that are folded into that. And I have courses on storytelling. I have courses on how to write to women from soup to nuts if you're just learning copywriting, or even if you already are a professional copywriter and want to understand how to reach the female market. You'll see all that on there too. And the free course is on right there on the homepage. So yeah, I recommend that. It's called Turn Women into Buyers.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to include a link to your website, your newsletter, your free course, and below the video so people can find them easily.
Excellent.
And yep, thank you so much for listening in, and thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
joining us.
I loved it. Thanks.
Bye.